Hey, everybody.
And we are live.
Woohoo!
Hello, folks.
You got
Welcome
a lot
to
of
the
people in
show.
chat.
We have a lot of
Yes,
people.
look at all these great people. Hello,
Yes.
everyone in chat.
Hi,
Yeah.
everybody.
You got Martin Groves, Gary Spikes, Daniel Williams, Sparky, Sugar Britches, Lori Abbott,
Hi, Lori.
sister-in-law, Dustin Jones, son-in-law,
Hey, Dustin.
Carla, Gary. Oh, yeah, Sherry. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you all for being here. We're so happy to see you guys and so honored that you take a few minutes out of your holiday time to spend with us. And we have a fantastic guest tonight. He has a lot of wisdom to share and a lot of experiences to share with you guys. I know you're going to really enjoy his story. Like I say, he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these Inhumanoids. He's encountered Bigfoot several times, and he's going to tell us about all of his experiences and the knowledge that he's gained from them. And he's also going to talk a little bit about his parents and grandparents and great grandparents, what they told him happened to them and what they taught him. So it's going to be a fantastic guest. I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get started on that, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. And
Happy Thanksgiving.
Letitia, you have something to say, honey?
I do.
You fine people.
I have our prayer request. I would like to go through real quick. Prayer request for Sherry Griffey, Sam Barton, Reverend William G. Basham, William Denton, Daryl Denton. We're hoping you had a safe drive home to get with your kids. Cindy, the wife of Cowboy 4572, Trey Hood, Melissa Michelle, Josh and Nellie Turner, Mushu and Anthony, N.J. Hanson Howard, Randy Hutchings, Julie Stanton and her family, Connie Gwinnett, the Newman family, which is our neighbors. They just lost their granddaughter/daughter day before yesterday. It's pretty sad. I need the Henshaw family. Prayers to a really good friend of ours who's going through some things, and she don't want her name mentioned, but just, hey, say some prayers for her and her family. And my boss from work just had surgery for cancer, so she's needing some prayers too. So if I didn't mention the Henshaw family, Brad Henshaw just passed away, so more prayers to them. I want to say happy birthday to our Miss Krista.
Happy birthday, Krista.
Yesterday. Martin Grove's birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday, Brother Martin. I see you there in chat.
Yeah.
Bill, Mark Maycheck. Hello, brother.
I need everybody to please put all your questions in caps. It's the only way we can see them. Chat moves so fast. The only way we can see your questions is if you put them in caps.
Larry Fisher.
Done.
Hello, brother Larry. Michelle Johns. Hello.
I need addresses from Laura Neely for your print that you won. If you're in chat, or if anybody can get a hold of her, please let her know that we have a print we need to get her. Mike A. for the Blondes and Booze gift certificate. We need your address. Dick Richards, we need your address, please. We want to say just thank you to our subscribers and our members. You've helped us upgrade our equipment. We have a special announcement. We have a new night vision Psionics camera coming next week. So thank you guys
Thanks to you guys.
much.
Yes.
Awesome.
Bring you some really good content with that.
Some color nighttime footage. Yes.
And it's not just our members, it's our subscribers too. So thank you to each and every one of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, JD, for your donation. We really appreciate you, man. And like I said, we got a great guest tonight. This is Pastor William Baize. We've been friends for 6 or 7 years now, and I've talked to him before, and he knows he's a man of God like I am, and he knows that there are consequences in the next life, in the afterlife, for running around in this one telling lies to people. So you can rest assured that everything he tells you will be the truth. So yeah, I'm just really excited that he's agreed to come on and share his knowledge with you guys and with viewers. And
absolutely. Do you want to talk about the conference real quick?
I was getting ready to say, Krista, go for the Alabama conference, but first, thank you, Sugar Britches. We sure do appreciate you.
Thank you, hon.
Thank you, Sugar Britches. Very sweet.
It's all on you about the conference. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let me find it. Mark your calendars, guys. June 7th and 8th next year, Alabama Bigfoot Conference. And you have Tex Wesson, Texas Front Porch, who is the MC. You have very own Bart talking, Daryl Denton, myself and Brandy, Jason McLean, Greg Ogle, Martin Groves, and BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. So tickets are on sale now. And yeah, come see us all. It's going to be a great one.
Yeah, get your tickets now, guys. And this is going to be a Texas Front Porch meets Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a good one. And we were proud to induct a couple new members into the Brotherhood over the weekend. You guys have to excuse me. I'm coming down with a little cold from running around in the cold night air.
In the cold.
Like the land between the legs, yes, all weekend. So brother Larry Fisher, he's a new member of the Brotherhood.
Woo-hoo!
See this.
And
To make
Sister
it
Kelly.
crooked.
Yes, can you see that? So Larry Fisher Roofing, Larry Fisher and Sons Roofing, you guys, if you need any roofing done, he's the man to call. And
Awesome.
I'm saying that because I love him. He's my brother. And I want to support all my family and the people who support us and help us. And thanks to everyone who's given us encouragement and advice. And it's really, really humbling to see everyone reaching out to us. You know, we're new here. We don't consider ourselves YouTubers very much. A year ago, if anyone would have told me that I would be on YouTube, I would have said they were crazy. But we really appreciate all your advice and your encouragement and your support. And if not for you, we would not be here. And we got a lot of stuff coming up. The emails keep pouring in. I'm going to be spending the rest of the week after tomorrow doing new videos for the members and for the subscribers. So
Thank
you
you,
subscribers,
Bigfoot
yeah, you
Michigan
won't.
Rob.
Thank you, brother Rob. You won't be getting left out, subscribers. We just do a little bit extra for the members, and it's a labor of love, really, and we surely appreciate you guys. I hope everybody's ready for Thanksgiving, and remember not to eat too much, okay?
I gotta
Yeah,
work.
that's a little hard to do.
I won't be eating. I'm gonna be working.
Yeah.
So
But I will save you a plate.
okay.
Yeah.
I will miss my family. Tomorrow will be the first time I haven't been with my family on Thanksgiving. So Lori, if you're still there, I miss you and I love you and I love all my nieces and nephews, and I'll see y'all soon. So are we ready to bring Mr. William in?
Yes, without further delay, I want to introduce you guys to my good friend, Pastor William Baize. Let's bring him in, baby.
I also want to say I love you, Dustin. Thanks for being here, kiddo.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right.
Hello, everybody.
William,
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Hey, how are
happy
you?
Thanksgiving to you too, brother. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well, I think.
Good. Well, I'm so pleased that you agreed to come on this show and share all of your knowledge and experiences with everyone. You know, all we care about here is the truth, raw, real, no smoke, just the truth. And that's all we want. And I know that's what you're going to give us tonight. So I know that we've talked several times, but for the people and the viewers who don't know you, who aren't familiar with you, would you please tell us a little bit about your background, who you are?
Well, I'm a native Kentuckian from originally Ohio County, Kentucky, the little town of Centertown, what they call it.
Yeah.
My family has been in that county and the area of the county for over 200 years. So
Wow.
we're kind of, that's native home. But I've been living in Henderson County for 40 years in October. So
Well,
I've been here for a long time. I am a minister, have been a minister and pastored 2 churches, assisted pastored in 5 churches now. I've been a minister for 47 years, well, close to 47. It'll be 47 in July. So it's 46
Wow.
years.
So I think that everybody can trust that you're going to tell us the truth and be honest. And
What I tell is the truth, whether anybody believes me or not, it's up to them.
the truth, that's what we want, and where it lands, and it'll stick where it's supposed to, and where it'll slide off where it's not. So
thank you, Sherry.
Thank you so much, Sherry, and we're praying for you, hon.
You know what I find amazing is that, you know, you're a minister, a preacher, and that you're willing to talk about it, because there's a lot that's not. in the churches. I
Years
appreciate
ago,
that. And thank you for that.
well, years ago, I wouldn't have. When I was trying to make it in ministry, I'm now kind of retired, kind of. I'm
Thank you.
helping a cousin who's a pastor. I'm assisting him in a small church. And we're working to build it up. But now I don't care.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank
You
you.
get so old, you don't care what nobody thinks of you no more.
Right. That's just like me. You know, I'm too old to care what anybody thinks about me. I just tell the truth, brother. And like I say, it'll stick where it's supposed to and slide off where it's not. So
Yeah, that's right.
that's the way I've always been, but especially now that I'm pushing 60. So
Thank you,
it doesn't
Holly.
really matter.
You're
what people think,
pushing
you know.
60. I'll be 65 in a week or so.
Well, you're looking good. Looking good, brother.
Yeah, I'm well preserved.
Yes, you are. Thank you, Liberty. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Liberty.
you. So, William, you believe in Bigfoot, right?
I don't believe in him. I know him.
There you go.
I've seen him more times than I ever cared to.
Right.
Wow.
Same here.
And-
Let's talk a little bit about that. When was the first time that you saw Bigfoot?
It would be in July of 1963 on Highway 69, close to Centertown, Kentucky, there in Ohio County. My family were living up north at the time near the Chicago area, in the Chicago Metroplex. We would come down during my father's vacation and visit with all our relatives, which all lived in that same town. And we were staying that night with an aunt and uncle who had, at the time, I think they only had 5 kids, but later they would have 8. And but we were staying there. I was 4 years old, I think, in 63. Had a little brother. My sister had died a couple years before. So it was just me and my little brother, and we were there. My uncle fixed a cookout outside of the house. This was one of the houses built in the 19th century. So it wasn't seated on the ground. It was on them stone or granite-like foundation blocks held up off the ground. The dogs usually,
like pillars, like concrete pillars.
Yeah,
we see a house like that. Yeah.
And the dogs and chickens, usually some of the chickens would get up underneath the house. And a lot of us kids spent time playing under the house, That's where my uncle put a lot of his farming tools, was under the house. But we were sitting there near the grill, and I looked over. My father was standing with his back against the house. My father stood 5'11" in his stocking feet. He was 6 foot in his shoes. And there was a window a foot above his head, or a little bit better. And my aunt said, "Yeah, that's the window. That's the room you'll be sleeping in tonight."
Oh.
With your cousin Daryl. Daryl was 6 months older than me. And so that night we all went to bed. Daryl and his 2 brothers slept in one room there, and I was sleeping with him. He didn't want to face the window, so I was laying on my right side facing the window. Like I said, the bottom windowsill of that window was 7 feet off the ground. So it gave me a really good perspective. And that day that evening, I'd heard for the first time, being a city boy at the time, I heard a whippoorwill call. And I asked my aunt, "What is that?" And she said, "It's a whippoorwill. It's just a nighthawk. They hunt insects. It ain't no big deal." And it wasn't real loud or powerful, but you could hear it real nice and pretty, So that night I go to bed, and I'm used to city noises. In a big city, you hear cars and trucks honking and sirens and trains and factory sounds and sometimes aircraft flying over, You're used to that, but the country was loud. Insects, hoot owls, and whippoorwill calls. And I couldn't sleep for it. It's something I was totally not used to at that age. Later in life, I would become very acclimated to that sound. And the woods were butted right up to the back of the house, and the back of the barn was on the other side of the house from me. And it was a typical farm. They had a lot of dogs, collies, a hound dog. They had a border collie puppy they were going to give me the next year when it got to be a year old, and I had a home to take it to. But the woods was not very many yards from the back of the house. And I'm looking out along a straight line of the woods, and I'm hearing the whippoorwill call, and all of a sudden, this big, hairy thing must have been, I'd say, 50 feet or 60 feet away down the wood line, stepped out of the woods underneath of a tree. And it looked like a big, hairy man is what it looked like. And it was a full moon night, so you could see anything and everything. We didn't have outside lights, and it was more lit outside than it was in the house. And I'm looking down there, and this thing comes walking down along the wood line, but he's looking over at the grilling area where my uncle had grilled at. And as it gets closer, I can see this is no man. Mm-hmm. The only thing I'd been to the Chicago Zoo, and I'd seen monkeys and apes, and that was the closest thing I'd seen to an ape, but it also kind of looked like a man. It walked like a man.
Yeah. What color was it?
Huh?
What color was it?
It was a very dark brown, almost black. And it just glanced up at me and turned to its right, going towards the grill. One thing it had done when it stepped out of the woods, it put its hand up to its mouth on the opposite side of its face from me, and it did a whippoorwill call. I've seen it do it. Wow. And when it did that, its whippoorwill call was not like the earlier whippoorwill call. This reverberated and echoed. And all of a sudden, there was an even bigger whippoorwill call from behind the house. And I heard the dogs under the house whimpering and crying. And I heard the horses neighing. And I heard the cow that he had in there throwing a fuss. The pigs were really acting up. The chickens were all cackling real loud. The noise level had just really kicked up. And this thing walks towards me, just glances at me. It goes to the right, and it disappears from my vision. But all of a sudden, there's one puts its hands on the bottom windowsill, and his face is in the top part of the window. And the window's open. We didn't have air conditioning back then. That was your air conditioning, how the window opened. And it stooped down. So you can imagine this thing must have been 8 foot tall or more. And I got the impression now, as a boy, I didn't understand that this was a different creature from the one that had walked by. And he stooped down and he actually put his head in the window looking at me, and I couldn't have been more than 4 foot from the window. And I did what a lot of people would do. I covered my head over with the covers or the sheets on that bed. They didn't really have any cover on it. And I was scared to death. I was terrified. I was a little 4-year-old boy, I was terrified. And after a while of having that cover over my head, I had to look. And I pulled it down, hoping it was gone. And there it stood still yet, head in the window. So what did the 4-year-old boy do? I screamed bloody murder. That's what I did. I screamed like crazy. And I woke the whole house up. And my cousin that was over on the other side of me, he was sleeping that time. And boy, he jumped when I screamed. And I must have had my eyes kind of closed when I was screaming because the thing wasn't there when I opened my eyes. But my parents came running in, my uncle and aunt came running in, and they my mother had to calm me down and said, "What was it? What was it?" And I told her, I said, "A big monkey come out of the woods and came walking down the woods towards me, and it stuck its head in the window." That's what I told her, because as a kid, I didn't realize it could be a different one.
Yeah.
And she said, "Honey, you were dreaming." I said, "All the noise out there, I could not sleep. I couldn't go to sleep at all." And she tried to calm me down. And my uncle said, "Where did you see it come out of the woods at?" And I pointed down there. And one of my cousins, who's about 4 or 5 years older than me, said, "I seen something go by the window when he woke me up from screaming." He said, "I thought it could have been a coon or something." My uncle went to the window and he looked out. He stuck his head out. He had been in the Korean War, airborne army. He wasn't afraid of nothing. He looked out and he said, "I don't see anything, but the grill area is torn up." And I had heard pans and stuff moving around. And he looked at my dad, and they left. And the next thing I see them, my mother's still there trying to hold me and calm me. And my uncle and my dad had some kind of long guns in their hand. I'd been shotgun, rifle. I don't know what it was they each had, but they went down to the very place, because I had said it comes out from that tree that's hanging out of the woods, is where I told them. And my uncle went to that part, and he looks down, and he looks like he's looking at footprints. He was a good tracker and hunter. That's the way he provided for all his kids, was to hunt animals and put them on the table. Because he was a poor man, he's just a poor farmer, and so he had to hunt.
Right.
And he's looking at my father. Of course, I can't hear anything they're saying. But then they go in the woods, which filled me with terror. I didn't want to lose my father, He was my hero, And but they came out later, and they must have went around the house by the woods, because I didn't see them come out. And then they came in the house. And I heard my dad say to my uncle, said, "You would think that those coonhounds would do something." He said, "No matter how game a hound is, they got better sense than to come out and tangle with one of them."
Right.
That's what my uncle said.
That's exactly what our dogs did back in 1975 in Spotsville.
Yeah.
They would run up underneath the house, They would not, and they were vicious. Even our best family friends, when they pulled up to visit mom and dad, they could not get out of their car without mom or dad going out there and getting the dogs away first. So, but when these creatures came around, they'd head straight underneath the house. They wouldn't have any want to tangle with them. So, yeah.
I would say dogs have a natural instinct what is a superior predator.
Yes.
And especially if, as my Native American ancestors said, they're spirit animals, then they've got powers and abilities no normal animal has. And that would be the reason animals are afraid of them.
Right.
Thank you, Stitch Witch.
Yeah, thank you, Stitch Witch. So you were first exposed to the Inhumanoid phenomenon at 4 years old.
Yeah, that was the first time I seen them. So my grandmother, we went to town the next day in my dad's Bel Air. He had a 57 Bel Air, red and white. And my grandmother lived in a shotgun house. Her father, my great-grandfather, who was born in 1888, he was sitting on the front porch, and her husband's older brother was there. My grand uncle, he was born 1877. So I've known people who were from the 19th century. Yeah. And my mother instructed me, and I went up to tell them what I saw. I was too terrified. And my grandmother called me to her side and put her arm around me and said, "Alan, you go ahead and tell me what you saw." And so I told her everything exactly as I just described it to you. And she says they do make whippoorwill calls. And they'll make hoot owl calls.
Yeah.
That's what she said. And my great grandfather said they're the wood monkeys. And that's what he called it. And my grandmother said, well, my grandma said they were Sukaloo. Sukaloo's a Cherokee name for the leaning giant or slant-eyed giant. It depends on whether you're talking to Eastern Cherokee or Western Cherokee, what it means. And a neighbor from across the way, he had been born 1889, I think, when he was born. He said his grandfather called him Sermonesh. I have no idea what kind of Native American his grandfather was, but he used to try and teach me the language that his grandfather had taught him, words in that language. I sometimes thought he was making fun of me because he would teach me how to count to 5 in Indian, he said. And it didn't sound like it would be Indian. It sounded like a big joke.
Thank you, Bigfoot Society.
Yeah, I just want to say hello to Brother Victor and Roger LBL and everyone else. Larry Fisher, thank you, brother, for being here. Michelle, Rob, all you guys, we love all you guys. So tell us, William, what was your next experience with the Bigfoot?
Well, I have to add this. As a boy, I was terrified of whippoorwill calls. It didn't matter if they weren't as powerful and echoey or resounding as the ones the Bigfoot had made. If it was a whippoorwill call, it was terrifying. I didn't get over that till I was about 13 or 14. But we went back up north. We came back for the summer, and I was afraid to stay at my uncle and aunt's house in 64. But they gave me my border collie, and I took it home. And we moved back down to Centertown, got us a home near McHenry, Kentucky in 1965. We were renting. Later, we would buy a house right in town in 66. And so in 66, when we moved there, there was 100-acre wood right next to my house. And there was all the time whippoorwills hollering, and I would shut my windows and cover my head over, and scared to death that it would be another one.
Yeah.
But in 69, I was 10 years old, and they have what they call the Centertown Hill. You have to go up across Church Street. The reason they call it Church Street is there's 3 churches in that town, and they're all on that same street. One on one side of the main street, and the other 2's on the other side. And I went up into the woods. There was a radar tower or radio tower up there on top of that hill. But then on the other side, it was solid woods. That must have been hundreds of acres of woods. And I was walking. I had my dog, who was half collie, half German Shepherd. And she was with me. She went everywhere with me. And all of a sudden, I heard a big pounding noise. And I looked at my dog. One minute, she's beside me, and the next minute, she's cowering under a bush. Well, when I heard that big pounding noise, I decided she had a good idea. I went and cowered under that bush, too.
Right.
Real low down. I was small. I was one of the smallest kids in my grade, and so I was easily able to hide. Mm-hmm. And then I kept hearing a boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, there was 2 sets of hairy feet and legs in front of me that I could see from under that bush. And then they stopped for a second, and then they went on down the hill. And I could see more and more of them as they went down, going up the back of their legs, their gluteus maximus, their backs, their shoulders. I could see muscles moving under dark brown fur. The head looked like it was just set on the shoulder without any neck. And all of a sudden, the wind had been blowing from my back, so they must have not been able to smell me. But all of a sudden, they're below the wind, and one of them, well, they both kind of pivoted on their foot. They didn't turn their head. They just pivoted on one foot and looked back at me. And I decided that to take the better part of valor and run like Dickens.
Right.
Me and my dog both took off running. We run through over that hill, down that hill, past that house, past the church. I run down Church Street, 1 block, turn right. My great-grandfather's home was right there. And my great-grandfather was sitting on his porch, as always. In fact, when I was growing up, I thought that's what adults did. They grew up and they sat on their porch. And my great-grandfather was sitting there in a rocker, and my grandmother, his daughter, was visiting him. And I ran in there, and my dog's running. My dog looks as terrified as I do, I guess. And they said, "William Allen, what's wrong?" Said, "You look like you're running from a haint." And I told him what I'd seen. And my grandmother said, "Well, don't be afraid. They chase down and kill deer to eat. If they can chase down a deer, you wouldn't have been no problem. They didn't want you."
Right. So for those of you who don't know, a haint is a southern term we use for ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haints.
More so in the old days. What I can't get over is my grandmother and great-grandfather had some linguistic differences that I or the people of my generation didn't use. So now I use language that the children of today don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
If I tell them, there's a creek over there, they don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't know what a crick is. Well, that is funny. So your grandmother and your grandfather both had knowledge of the reality of these inhumanoid creatures commonly referred to as Bigfoot.
Yeah. My great-grandfather said, if I can remember exactly what he said, I said, they're awfully close to the house. They're awfully close to town. I mean, they were like a block in the woods, just about 1,000 yards from the edge of town. And he said, they always have been. And he said, I'm glad to hear that there's some still around, that they haven't been all killed off. He said, I thought when when all the deer were really low in number, that they were gone, that they had been, they'd left, they'd been killed off. But I'm glad to hear they're back. He seemed to think it was that they were all right. He acted like it was kind of an accepted norm,
Right.
It was something he knew. It would, years later, in 1973, we left that town, moved to Hancock County. My father had a job there at the aluminum smelter. We lived there for a while. I met my wife there in 1973. So I've known her a long time. We got married in 1979. Took her 6 years to come around to good sense. Now she thinks
like that.
Yeah, now she doesn't think it's such good sense. But we got married, and in 1983, well, I pastored a church there in Hallsville, Kentucky for a few years. And then in 1983, we moved to Henderson, Mattingly Drive in Country View subdivision.
Yeah.
We were living in a little duplex, 1432A. But we were living there, and then I had a job at the old Coosan plant.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa.
Real quick. Thank you,
One second,
Jitesh.
Brother William. Victor, thank you so much, brother.
Jitesh.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I've never seen that much money donated to any YouTube channel before. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Victor. We really appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Very, very nice, Jitesh.
Yes, thank
Wow,
you.
I can't even read it. My eyes are watering.
Would you like me to read it to you?
Yes,
Please,
please.
please.
Says, Brother Barton and Miss Nunley, two of the kindest, most compassionate, loyal, earnest, patient, selfless, humble, and wisest good human beings on this planet that I have ever came across. It is an honor to be in both of your presence. Let us all continue to support, respect, love you, and hang on to your every word. God bless you both.
Oh man.
Thank you,
That's
Victor.
awesome,
That is
Jakesh.
all ours, brother.
That is really good.
God bless
Yes.
you too. Okay,
Yes.
I'm a little shocked there,
Uh.
but thank you. Thanks again, Victor. You're more than generous. That's just
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, Brother William, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Jatesh.
Thanks again, Victor. Go ahead and tell your story there, William.
Okay, here in Henderson County, I'd heard a lot of stories about Bigfoot being numerous here, and I thought, oh, it's just like Ohio County. A lot of road department people had seen them, things like that, but I hadn't seen anything living in town. But eventually, we had enough money. 87, we built our home out here on Barron Church. You've been here a couple of times, Bart, so you know what my little brick home looks like.
Sure.
And
for those who don't know, Letitia and I both live in Henderson County and not that far away from Brother William there. He lives more toward the city in the suburbs, and we're out in Basket. So, yeah, we all live in Henderson County.
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Yeah.
But I walked my dogs for 30 some years out to Barron Church, up Griffin Grays Creek Road. And I've trained my dogs. A lot of people know how well trained my dogs are or were. I started training dogs for bird hunting in 2003, and I became very successful at it. I love being in the woods. I couldn't stand towns. I spent most of my life in the woods. Even Bigfoot was there. I didn't care. I loved my woods. And my father taught me how to survive in the woods, taught me how to make lean-tos, how to track, how to set snares. He taught me how to shoot.
Yeah. And for anybody that's listening, might be listening from Henderson County, Brother William just told you two really good spots to go look for Bigfoot, and you could probably have your own sighting if you doubt the existence of these creatures. Listen to what this man says.
Okay, and as I got to hunting really good in 2003, my dog and I, a black German short-hair pointer by the name of Daisy, who became a field trial champion, we were hunting on the Green River near Bluff City. And we had found a large
river there.
We had found a large covey, and I dropped 3 birds, but we went looking for the singles. You get 8 is the max you can take a day.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for the other quail. They'd all spread out along the flood wall that had been built by the strip mine.
Right.
And I was walking along the flood wall, and I would find a quail, and when I gave him a chance to fly, to be sportsmanlike, they all flew over to the Davis County side of the river.
Well,
so one time she pointed a bird right in front of me and looked at me like, "You dummy, you better get this one," is the way she looked. So I put my foot over the bird because he was laying in a depression, and then I just reached down, grabbed him, and twisted his neck and put him in my bag. I didn't have to pull a trigger for that. So we worked down the flood wall. Then we walked down the flood wall. I thought, well, we'll work back up. And going back up the flood wall. And all of a sudden, she goes up the flood wall and she points. At least I thought she was pointing. And a buck steps up. And I'm thinking, oh, no, I'm going to have to shoot him to save her life. And he tries to stand up, but he can't stand up. He starts rolling over and over. We're over a mile from the nearest road. There's no way a buck with a broken back leg could have crawled all that distance. Mm-hmm. How did he get there?
So this buck had a broken back leg, and he was trying to get up out of the bushes. Right?
Yeah, and he rose down the hill, almost rose over me. I had to step back, and my dog is following him all the way, and he keeps trying to get up, and he's thrashing around. He can't do anything, and I figure the best thing to do is put him out of his misery. So I shoot him, and put him out of his misery. Plus, I didn't want my dog hurt.
Right. Thank you for doing that.
Hey, Sherry, how you doing?
Yeah, hello, Sherry. No need to have animals suffer needlessly. Yeah. So his leg was broken, and he rolled down the hill towards you, and then you shot him into misery, and then
I went around him, and I'm working on down the flood wall, and I'm coming to the area where the flood wall goes to the left, and there's a forested area, a large forested area, and there's a big high bunch of shrubbery. We're not very far from the buck I just shot. We're only about 30 feet.
Yeah.
And something starts standing up from behind the shrubbery. It's brown. I think, oh no, not another deer. Because I had broke her of chasing deer. I didn't want her ever to chase deer. And she steps in front of me, and her hackles are raised. She's growling. And this thing just keeps standing up. And keep standing up. I would say it was somewhere between 6 and 7 feet in height. I never seen the front of it, only the back of it. And it never looked my way. And again, no neck, didn't have a neck, but the head just seemed to rest right on the shoulders, and it started walking away from me. And I again decided to take the better part of valor and grabbed my dog by the collar and high-tailed it up that flood wall. I was getting out of there.
Don't blame you for that at all.
Yeah, I didn't think a shotgun was going to stop something that big.
Right.
I didn't want to make him mad neither.
Now, what color was the hair on this one?
Dark brown.
Dark brown.
Almost black again. And I went over the hill, and there's 2 kids riding around on 4-wheelers. And said, "Did you see it, mister? Did you see it?" I didn't know what they had seen. Maybe they were looking for the buck. I don't know. I learned later on that Bigfoot, when it goes for a deer, it breaks the back leg. And then you can just, the deer can't go very far. It can go back and get it any time, I guess. But I didn't know that at that time, and I still don't know for sure that's what it did. I'm just guessing. Okay.
Right.
I'm not stating a fact. I'm guessing. But
So
I told him
that you interrupted this Bigfoot from harvesting this deer after it broke its hind leg.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking happened.
Right.
But I was not going to interfere with his hunt. Even though he had me, he interfered with mine. I only had 5 birds now. 5 quail. But I was getting out of there. It was time to get out of Dodge, And
it's just broad daylight. I mean,
I told those kids, I said, "Yeah, I seen it. I didn't know whether they were talking about it or not. But I said, I seen it. Y'all better go home. Because that's what me and my dog's doing. We're going home." So I got in my hunting van. I was driving a 95 Dodge Caravan that I used for hunting. It had front wheel drive. It wasn't very good at going through mud. It got stuck a few times, but that was a gravel area out there then. And so we left. The next time I seen Bigfoot, I seen something behind my fence in my backyard.
Hang on 1 second, William. Everybody, please pray for Lisa Smith. She found out today that she has MRSA. So let's just keep her in our prayers, please.
Prayers for you, Lisa.
Okay, I'm sorry, William.
Have some faith. God will see you through it.
In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, touch her and heal her right now.
Right.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so what year was when you saw the Bigfoot and the deer?
And that was 2003.
2003. Okay.
2003. That would be November.
All right.
I always wait after the first 2 weeks of November, I say, let the deer hunters get their limit of deers, bird dogs and bird hunters, before I go out, because I don't want to be shot from a tree,
Right. Yeah.
and I don't want to interfere in their hunts.
Right.
Our
You have to be courteous of you, brother.
quail season lasts longer than deer season does.
Mm.
And so that's exactly when it was. And my black German short hair, now gone on and waiting for me on the uplands in heaven. She died when she was 17. But
Sorry.
we had some great times together. I remember when you came in 2017, she was here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's
When
the
you
one I
came
let
to-
off the back door, huh?
Yeah, she was
Yep.
here at that time. So Barton actually
remember.
seen her, and
Yeah.
she was a legend. People that I competed against in field trials said she only ever enters the field when she's aiming to win. It's a shame her shooter ain't no better than he is. But she did win 3, and she placed high in. She had 3 championships and placed high in several field trials.
Amazing animal.
So she kind of scarred me. I thought every bird dog was supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But they ain't. She was
Right.
like a psychic genius. She knew what I wanted before I even spoke or blew my whistle.
Hey,
But
William, real quick, while you're talking about dogs, Cryptidville asked, do you still train dogs?
I'm kind of retired. I have a black German short hair laying at my side right over here. I've been training him. I've still got 14 pigeons, which I take care of, and I use for training purposes. And I've got quail in a pen out here too that I also use for training.
Good deal. I figured while you were talking about the dogs, might as well ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anybody, I know that the holidays, if you lost a loved one or an animal or a pet that you really loved, I know the holidays are especially hard for y'all, and I just want you to know that our thoughts and our prayers are with you. Just know that you will see your loved ones again, and have faith that you will.
Mhm.
I hope the good Lord gives
Amen.
you some solace in knowing that. So, when was the next time you saw Bigfoot, William? Let's carry on, brother. This
Okay.
2003, I think.
August 2020.
Mhm.
So it was several years before I seen some more. I
Yeah.
was walking my extra large liver German short hair for exercise. And we would walk down Barron Church, and to our right is some privately owned land used for a hunting preserve for this individual. He hunts deer, quail, pheasant over there, and some really mysterious things had been happening on that land.
Mhm.
In the woods near the land, I would hear tree knocks whenever I passed. I figure that must be their way of warning one another. Okay.
Right.
One time I had 3 of my bird dogs with me, and I walked over into the property because it had high grass. I didn't have any high cover nearby. And a bird dog needs to practice retrieving in high cover because it's hard to find things. And
Yeah.
I had this big liver German short hair that was an older brother to the one I owned. He became a United Kennel Club field trial champion.
Thank you,
Oh,
Appalachian
wow.
Tales.
And well, I threw the dummy. I have a quail replica dummy with a rope attached that I threw out, and it landed in the grass, and sent him to retrieve it. And he retrieved it. He was always very good about putting it right in my hand when he came back with it. All of a sudden, I heard a man's voice, sounding like a man, saying, "It says no hunting." And I look around, there's nobody there. The man says he's got cameras on there. I figured, do these cameras have speakers? but my dogs didn't react. They act like they hadn't heard a thing. And I'm just totally mystified. What is this? I'm hearing a voice, and my dogs are not hearing it. There's no way that's possible. You know, dogs hearing is so much better. And
Yes.
I spent time in the Army around tanks. I have lost, and in factories, I've lost 50% of my hearing. So how can I be hearing it and the dogs are not?
Right. Well, thank you
Which
for your
just-
service, William.
Huh?
Thank you for your service, brother.
Yeah,
So
I
you were
tried.
supposed to another ability of these Inhumanoids, and that's the mental telepathy ability. Yeah, they can speak to you in your mind, in your own language, whoever you are. So yeah, keep going with that. That's very interesting.
And so that was the first incident that something strange is happening on this land. The wood knocks, this voice. Uh, I was totally superstitious about this land. One day I'm walking my bird dogs. It's early in the morning. It's like 5:30 in the morning, and I see a black panther fighting with two bobcats on this property. I thought it was a black lab at first, and I seen it fighting with these bobcats. I was about to turn my dogs loose to help it when I noticed that its tail was snaking like a cat's tail, long and snaking. And then I got a glimpse of its head, and that was no dog. That was a big cat. And
Right. Good thing you didn't turn your dog loose on that cat.
And I told a friend of mine of this, and she had worked as a security guard at Eaton Axle, and she had seen a black panther while on security duty.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, so I noticed when we brought up that subject of mental telepathy that we lost a few people in the chat. Listen, people, we're not here to tell you what you want to hear. We're here to tell you the truth. And if that's too much for you, then maybe you should not be here. But we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you exactly what these things can do. And both William and I know that these things aren't just monkeys. So
No,
continue on, brother.
no, they're more than that.
Yes.
And so I'm seeing these weird things going on this man's land. And I've asked the neighbors of the land, and they either keep really mum about it or they just look at me like, maybe I hadn't seen it. One man lives right across it. I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I sit out there and I watch. And he said, I've seen you walking early in the morning. And I'm got the impression he's seen more than he is willing to tell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say his name.
Okay.
And got to protect friends and neighbors.
Good.
So more weirdness went on. I'm training my dogs in the wood, near the woods behind my house.
Did we lose him?
Right.
Yeah,
No.
never know. That's why my dog always seemed to know and read my mind. Is probably because of that mental telepathy.
Well, it's real. A lot of people can't handle the truth, but we're here to deliver the truth, whether it's sensational or mundane. Whatever the truth is, that's why we're interested in here. And our dog's the same way. She's almost so in tune with me that I could just give her a glance and she knows what I want her to do. I don't even have to give her a command. So maybe that is what's going on there, but it definitely is what's going on with these inhumanoid creatures, and they all seem to have that ability. Quite strange, isn't it?
I'm just going to state the facts. You can believe, you not believe. I don't care. If you want to believe they're monkeys and ain't very smart, you go ahead. I know what I know. Yes. I know what I've experienced. Anyway, I was training 3 of my bird dogs in a high grassy area next to the woods behind my house. And what I'm doing is I'm dropping a pigeon in the high grass and wanting the setter that I was training for a friend to point it. And I all of a sudden hear a man's voice talking to another man. That's what it sounds like. My dogs do not react. They do not look behind them. They are not looking at anything but the birds. I hear the voices say, let's watch and see how he is with these dogs.
Oh, wow.
And the other one says, okay. I thought there was deer hunters that they used to scout this area behind my house and sometimes hunt it. I went to both of them and asked them if they had been watching me train my dogs and if they had seen anything. They didn't know anything about what I was talking about.
Right.
So I do not know what was going on. I didn't see anything. I heard the voice, but it seemed to me like they were in the woods just behind me, which is kind of terrifying. Like I said, I saw Bigfoot, a shape of a Bigfoot standing on the cover behind the cover, behind my fence on my land one night. That was the first sign I had that maybe they're back there. I took my dogs in that field during the winter. It had snowed, and I found a huge human-like barefoot print. Hi, Sherry. It's good to see you. And
you just found one print? Is that what you're saying?
I just found one print. There was not two prints. It was just one human-like footprint, but it was huge.
Yeah.
In the snow. Why would some human being be walking barefoot in the snow?
Right. And how could he leave only one footprint in the snow?
And how do you just leave one footprint?
Yeah. We need to consider these things. And I mean, you're a Baptist minister. You're not going to sit here and lie to anyone about anything, no matter what they think. So,
well, let me straighten one thing out. I ain't Baptist. I'm Pentecostal.
Okay, Pentecostal.
I'm Pentecostal.
Okay.
I thought when I was raised up, I want to say this, my elders told me things, and they said, we want you to know these are not stories for entertainment. These are truths. You need to learn that there are monsters and demons and spirits in the world, but there's also angels and God.
Yes.
And you need to learn what we've learned, how to deal with them. That's the way they told me. And that is the very reason that I pass on what I know.
Yes.
Now, in my faith, most ministers say there's no such thing as ghosts. They don't believe in Bigfoot, nothing like that. I've had some who said they've went to haunted houses and tried to help people, but there's not very many of them. I'm kind of an oddball, I guess. You know, I'll accept that. I've always been odd. I've always been a little different. But the next thing that came about, it's August 2020, Bart. Remember, I've told you about that I'm walking down. I left real early. It's such a hot August. I'm walking my big liver dog. He's gone now. I lost him in March.
Sorry to hear that.
But I really loved that dog. He was my hero. But I was walking him down the road. It was cool in the morning, just a little past 5 o'clock, and it was dark. And when I get so far, I would cross to the right side of the road to keep from being hit by cars coming around the curve there.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who lives in the house right there in the woods next to this hunting preserve land, a private hunting preserve land, they keep that shoulder mowed, so it's easy to walk in. So I'm walking along the forest. You can't see nothing because it's so dark. And I walk around the corner of that forest. My dog's on a leash. Good thing I had kept him on a leash. As soon as I round that corner, I'm standing 10 foot from two Bigfoot. I got the clearest sight I've ever seen of the faces of two Bigfoot.
Okay, describe them for us with as much detail as you can, Brother William.
Dark brown. One was, I'd say, about 6'2", and the other one must have been about 6'6", standing right behind it. And I must have shocked them as much as they shocked me, because they roared out loud. It would have impressed a lion, I think. The roar was so loud. I don't know how anybody in that neighborhood could have slept through that noise.
Yeah. What do their faces look like, William?
Their faces, I would say they look more ape-like than human, but they look like a cross between ape and human. They had large black eyes. They had a brow ridge. They did not have a big conical head, but their head was not shaped like human beings.
Yes.
It was kind of bare, but not as bare as me, I can tell you that, but they bare above their brow ridges, but then hair started back. And their mouth, everything, all their skin was dark. That must have been as dark as their hair, which was dark brown, nearly black. And I stepped back to the other side of the road. They're standing in a gravel road that leads to the oil tanks. You've seen it, Bart. And I stepped to the other side of that cement road. It's a lane and a half in size. And my dog is terrified. And as soon as I step back there, an even bigger Bigfoot steps out of that out of the ditch from that farm. He's about 20 feet down, 30 feet, no, about 30 feet down. And he's got 1 foot in the ditch and 1 foot in the middle of the road. How, he had to be awful big to do that. I would say he was in excess of 8 foot tall. He was massive, and I would call him a male because he had genitalia that, because he stomped so hard on the road, it was kind of shaking. I hate to describe it that way, but
no, that's all right.
He had a big conical head, and he was lighter brown in color, almost cinnamon brown than they were. So he was a different color. He was a different size. My assumption, this is an assumption, they might have been juvenile. That's why they weren't no bigger than they were. And this was apparent. Using my Native American ancestors' own statements, they're spirit animals. They're like animals, but they're also like spiritual beings.
Right.
So they could be birthing their young and raising their own young. That's only an assumption, but I believe what my Native ancestors said about them.
Yeah. To them, it was common knowledge, right? But to us,
yeah, they lived with them
for the lies. We accept the lies so easily today, but the truth always makes us stumble.
Yeah, they lived with them for thousands of years, so I have to believe them. And they had more contact with them. But I step back, I see him over there, and I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? And there also felt like there was something behind me, but I wasn't going to look. I had no desire to look.
Thank you, Two Shadows.
I don't blame you.
So I decided that the one that I seen while out hunting never turned around to face me. Maybe this is an aggressive action. I turned and let them see my back. I didn't even look behind me. I wanted to real bad. But I didn't, and I just walked out of there. My dog was totally terrified. He had a toy that we gave him, a little rubber alligator, that when he squeezed it, it would holler, it would roar, and then it would holler, "I have feelings for you." And after that, that was his favorite toy. After that, he would have nothing to do with that alligator. He was not wanting to hear a roar ever again. And he became terrified of going outside in the dark.
Wow.
Well, it basically ruined your dog, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Doggone it.
he wasn't the same dog as my black girl. That girl knew no fear. She had tried to take on a whole pack of coyotes one time we were out hunting, and she growled and raised her hackles at the Bigfoot we saw. So I know she feared nothing, but he was terrified. He's a 90-pound dog, 27 inches tall. He was huge. He could lift me. I'm 250 off the floor. That's how strong he was. Could scoot under me and lift me off the floor when I have seizures and I sometimes collapse and I can't get up very well. And he could pick me up off the floor. He could raise me up enough and help me crawl to a couch. He was that stout, but here he was terrified.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And it wouldn't. I lost him this year. Like I said, his health went downhill after that, which bothered me. But that wasn't the only time I seen him. One day, it was a cooler day. I was walking down the road, and one of them crosses from that same farm over to the farmland on the other side of Barron Church Road. It had high corn. Now the corn was at about 6 foot. And it was still green, but he was like 2 foot above that corn. I seen him walk for a long time, but there was a hill down. He must have went down that hill. I saw one day I was coming back down Griffin Graves Creek. I saw the big honey brown colored one standing on a high hill on that same farmland, what I would call Bald Hill, where we would call it. It was out in front of the woods, and he was looking at me as if he could see me as well as I could see him. He only looked like about that big at the distance I was seeing him. And,
right.
But that was that account. Now, like I said, I've had other experiences, and my family's had other experiences. My sister, who is in the United States Coast Guard for 12 years, and before that, 12 years in the Navy, and her husband, who spent 30 years in the Coast Guard, they had my baby brother with them, and they had been out visiting me, and they left my house. And when they were on the Audubon Parkway, they came from the where we used to pay toll at the Hebbardsville exit.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees her husband. She's driving. Her husband is looking to the right in the shoulder, and she said, "Frank, what are you looking at?" He said, "I'm looking at the Bigfoot running alongside of our car."
Oh, really?
And my baby brother looks over and he said, "Yeah, I said that." And my sister looked over and said, "Yeah, it was big and it was plain."
Yeah.
So they saw it. My daughter and my son-in-law are coming home. They used to live with me. They're coming home one night, and they saw a big dog standing in the middle of the road. They said it looked like no breed of dog they'd ever seen. It looked more like a wolf. It was standing in the road, and it showed absolutely no fear of their car. My son-in-law said it must have been 3 foot at the shoulder.
Oh, wow.
He said we had to drive towards it. He said between 3. My daughter said she thought it was 4 foot at the shoulder because it was as tall as the fence in my backyard, she said. And it wouldn't move. And he honked his horn and everything at it and said it looked at him, its eyes glowed a fiery red. So when he came to my house and the thing finally got out of the road, he came to my house, they were shaking, and they told me this thing. And I said, "You've seen a devil dog is what you saw."
Mm-hmm.
And so I did what my grandmother taught me. I got out a broom. I went to the eastern corner of my house, and I swept the floor from east to west. And I said, as the sun comes up from the east and shines onto the west, clearing away the darkness, so I, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, sweep you away from the east to the west. Be gone and never return. I did that 7 times as my grandmother instructed me. And I didn't even remember that till here a while back. My son-in-law reminded me. But that was a ceremony that my ancestors used to do. So I've seen that.
Interesting. Now, didn't you say one time you saw one of these things packing a dead coyote or something like that, if I recall?
Okay. I forgot all about that incident. That was nearly 30 years ago. We were coming home from church, and I came through Anthoston and up the upper Delaware and turned on to Barron Church Road. That was about 1990, I'd say 1996. And I'm coming up that road, and I see something crouched in the road. I thought it was a dog or a coyote. Then it began standing. I thought it was a deer. And then it kept standing and standing and standing. This thing must have been 7 foot tall. It wasn't real wide. It was kind of narrow built, but it must have been 7 foot tall. And I'm looking at it, I can't believe it. And I see its face from my distance, and in the dark looked like 3 circles put together. You know, 1 bottom circle, 2 upper circles. That's all I can make out of its face, but I can make out the lines of its body. And it threw something across its body to the left. And then it turned to the left, and there was a high hill there and a 4 foot fence, but this thing made it in 1 leap.
Wow.
And I told my wife, I said, "Did you see that?" She said, "See what?" And I thought my kids were asleep. Just this year, my son told me he saw that very same thing. I said, "You did? I thought you were asleep." He said, "No, Dad, I wasn't asleep." So I wasn't asleep. We had just passed some friends of his, and he had waved at them. They went to church with us, and he had waved at him, so he was still awake, he said. And he said, "I saw it." I said, I didn't know anybody but me saw it.
Yeah. And
He
what
said,
it
"I'll
was
never."
through
Huh?
all the thing it was carrying, could you tell what it was?
Yes. The next day, because I used to walk all the way up Barron Church to Upper Delaware with my dogs one day. Then I would turn the next day and go up Griffin Graves Creek. Well, I'd already went up Barron Church the day before. I decided to do it again to see what this thing had trailed across itself. When I got up there, there was a dead coyote lying on the hill just below the fence. Its whole stomach was ripped from, cut open from stem to stern like a knife had done it. And when I lifted up on its leg, it looked like it was empty inside.
Yeah.
Right next to it, impaled on a tree that was a little higher than the 4 foot fence, was another coyote dead. I didn't know anybody would impale a coyote.
Yeah. And that's the exact same condition that we found all the dogs on our farm in Spotsville in 1975. They were cut. They weren't ripped or chewed or anything like that. It was almost surgical. And all the insides were gone, and the eyeballs were gone, and so was the tongues of these dogs that we found. So
Evidently, evidently I'd come along too early for it to grab tongue and eyes. So I don't know. But I hadn't understood that. I watched it for several days. 2 days after it happened, that the coyotes disappeared. I don't know whether he got them, or because I do know that if you're killing something, you don't want the meat to rot. You're going to take out the innards. But there was no innards anywhere around. He must have ate them. That must have been what he was eating on the road.
Exactly. Yeah, he didn't want the meat.
Yeah,
they didn't want the meat in Spotsville either.
What I didn't understand it, but I read a wildlife veterinarian and watched his video, and he said that the most nutritious part of an animal is the internal organs, the heart, the liver, the lungs. that's more nutritious than the meat is. It gives you more nutrition, more vitamins, more nutrients.
Well, we have to ask yourself this, brother.
Huh?
An 8 to 10 foot tall predator, you're going to need a lot of calories. You'd have to spend most of your time looking for and ingesting calories to fuel that huge bulk. Why would they not eat the meat as well?
Well, like I said, it disappeared.
The soft tissue, right? It's just really doesn't line up with what we know about animal behavior at all.
Well, some animals do lay up things to cure. Humans do that. They hang meat to let it cure. I always thought, well, that's letting it rot. I don't know if I want to eat rotten meat.
Yeah. Well, the thing about these carcasses that we found in Spotsville, they didn't rot very fast at all. No fly would land on them. No turkey vulture would come. Nothing would eat them. So they just lay there for months before they finally dried up and started decomposing. Right? Nothing would touch these things. So
these coyotes.
He was very smart. He always told us, even back then, we didn't know anything about Bigfoot or cattle mutilation or anything like that. But he told him what we'd seen, and because I examined one of the dogs with a stick, me and my brother Dean, and he told us. He said, "Don't go near them. Don't go near those carcasses anymore. Don't go within 20 feet of them ever again." So he had some kind of intuition that something was really wrong with these things. So yeah.
I figure that he did come back for him. I asked people around the neighborhood, and I don't think there was anybody out there that would pick up dead bodies off the road, because I had seen a dead deer lay. It was in the same condition, laying on the side of the road. Its stomach ripped open, no guts in it at all, and it was just left there. The only animal I ever seen evidently wanting to consume it was a skunk. My dog got near the deer. He wanted to smell the deer, and all of a sudden the skunk stuck his head out of the anus area of the deer. So the skunk was the only thing that was getting in there to eat, is what I got. But the coyotes disappeared within 2 days.
Really?
Now, you want me to tell the stories that my parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents?
We hear all the knowledge that you have, brother, and we realize that your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents, they have knowledge that needs to be passed down as it was passed down to you, or to be lost. So sure. Let's talk about your childhood in a little bit.
Let me add one more thing. Like, we used to swim in the Rough River a lot. Near Centertown, there's a rough area called Ross's Riffle, and we would go there to swim. One time we went to the Rough River, there were little footprints, like a G.I. Joe or a Barbie and Ken doll would make, except they were flexed. They weren't like hard plastic. And I showed them to my father. My father said, "Oh, they're raccoon prints." No, I've seen raccoon prints. Raccoon prints were bigger. Y'all still there?
I'm here.
Yeah, we're here, buddy.
Okay, I thought for a minute I couldn't hear you. But the raccoon prints were a lot bigger than these. I'd seen them before. And I said, "No, Dad, they're not shaped like that. They look just like miniature human being footprints." Oh, some girl probably down here playing with her Barbie doll, And I said, "But they're flexed. The toe and the ball of the foot is pressed down harder in some places. The heel is pressed down harder in some places." They were going up to the water. Both me and my cousin and my brother all seen it. I don't know what did that. I never saw what did that, but it really struck me. I'll start with some of the earliest stories of my family, the earliest tales.
Before you do, brother, I want to add this. Excuse me, still fighting this cold up. of all the mysteries that I've looked into, and I've looked into all of them just about in the last 40 years, the little people phenomenon is the only one that I found really concrete evidence to support. I found a little footprint, one little footprint like you did, and two pygmy flints that were just so tiny that they couldn't be made by a regular sized human. So yeah, totally believe in the little people. Have never seen one, but I believe in them.
Yeah, I've seen more of their footprints than I've ever seen of a Bigfoot, and I've seen Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that, it didn't look like no child had been playing because the footprints showed signs of flexing in the sand.
Yeah.
So, and they were all over the place. So I'll start with one of the earliest stories of my ancestors. My grandmother told this. Her grandmother was a little child, a baby, actually, an infant. And her great grandmother was known as a healer. She had learned from the native peoples medicinal herbs and how to heal people. And she made salves and ointments and poultices, something they used to do, the pioneer people used to do. This
Right.
must have been in the early part of the 19th century because she said it was her grandma. She never told me which side of the family. I assumed that it was on her mother's side, but it could have very well been on her father's side. But she said that her grandmother was a baby. Her great grandmother was this healing woman. And she said one night a woman came to her house and she had invited her in. People back then were very hospitable,
Right.
And she sat in one of her chairs and she talked to them and everything. And then she left. The child, my grandmother's grandmother, was no more than a few months old, became very sick, and my great grandmother's husband became very sick all of a sudden.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's too bad.
And she contacted a man which my people called a white witch. And because she was treating their illness, but she couldn't help them. And he told her that the woman who had come to her house was a witch, an evil witch, had put a curse on her because she was healing people. She was taking her business. And she said, so she put a curse on your child and your husband. He said, take coals, said the milk that she drank, burn it, put it in a pot in the fire and burn it because she drank milk while she was there.
Mm-hmm.
He said, take coals from out of the fire and put it in the seat of the chair she sat in and burn the seat out of that chair.
Wow.
That's what he told her. And he said, now she is going to show up at your house all burned and she's going to want ointment for her burns. And she said, okay. He said, don't give her nothing because all she wants to do is get something from your possession that she can put a curse on.
Yeah.
So that night, after she burned the seat out of the chair, the woman shows up at her house screaming and hollering and begging for her to open the door and to give her ointment to treat her burns. And she had hideous burns, she said, on her face and hands. And she told the woman, no, in the name of the Lord God, I will give you nothing. And the woman screamed and hollered and screamed curses at her and everything like that, and then left. But my grandmother's grandmother got better and her father got better. They never suffered anything again. That was the story my grandmother told. Her family, according to her, had been fighting witches and ghosts for centuries. They knew what they were doing. They were the enemies of witches.
Yeah.
bad witches anyway.
Really spooky.
And my grandfather told this very story on his own mother. His mother was the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter. She was a witch in the late 19th century in Livermore, Kentucky, and she was the head of a coven. And she had 13 children. My father was one of the youngest. I think he had one brother younger than him. And he said, we all either found Jesus or we found the bottle. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Because of her wickedness and her evil, he said. She drove us all away. He said, I tried both. I tried the bottle and then I tried Jesus, he said, which he became a Christian near the end of his life. He was suffering with leukemia.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that she was in a house with her brother, who was also a member of the coven, and a big red dog came to the house. And it came in the house because they had the door open. The dog had red eyes, and they knew who it was, he said. They said, we're not ready to go, and they pushed it out the door and shut the door and locked it. But he said that the dog turned into a red smoke and came through the keyhole.
Oh, wow.
And formed in the house. And he said his mother died 3 months after that occurrence, or a month after that occurrence, excuse me. And his uncle died a few days later.
So the red dog was.
They
who?
thought, he said, I believe the red dog was a devil. He had come for him.
That's what I was getting ready to say, but I don't want to lead you into saying something that I put in your mind. So let's take it up a notch, brother. Did you or your parents or your grandparents ever live in a haunted house?
Yes, as I was telling you the other night.
Yeah, let's hear it. All the viewers, yes.
In 1944, my grandfather, who had been working in the coal mines, found out that near Centertown, between Centertown and McHenry, on Highway 69, there was a farm for sale, 250 acres, and it was dirt cheap, really cheap, and it had a nice house on it. The house had mainly two massive rooms. One room was used as a kitchen, dining room, living room combination. The bedroom was huge, and it was used for a living room, bedroom combination. It had an enclosed back porch, a small front porch. It had upstairs, but it really didn't have no rooms upstairs. I don't understand the description. All I'm telling you is what they said. It had a closet upstairs, and it had an access to an attic. So when they were moving in, the people in the area warned them the house is haunted, very badly haunted. And they laughed and told them, said, don't worry, we'll scare them so bad the ghosts will leave. The haints will leave, they said.
Yeah, that didn't happen, though, did it?
And so the closet that was straight up the stairs and to the right was a closet, and it was nailed shut. Why? They did not understand. My grandfather pulled the nails out and opened the door, and he said it smelled absolutely of death. That's what my mother and her siblings all said. It was, my grandmother said it was terrible smell of death. So he shut the door and nailed it back. He said somebody had a good reason for nailing it. I'm gonna nail it back. So they're in their beds, all in the bedroom area. The bedroom was a log cabin that had been turned into, with the house added on to it. It had been built in 1790 something. So it was very old. She said that night they were trying to sleep, and all of a sudden that closet door flew open, and a man and a woman pushing a baby carriage came out of that closet. They pushed the baby carriage down the stairs, pushed it into the bedroom where they were all at. It stopped at the foot of her mother and father's bed. Then it went to the foot of her bed and to the foot of each of her siblings' beds. As if she said, this is the way my mother put it, it looked like they were window shopping, the way they were looking at us. Said, I was so terrified when they were looking at me. She said, I covered my head over with the cover. That must have been where I got it from, I guess. But for covering my head over when I seen Bigfoot. But she said she covered her head over, but when she pulled the cover back, they were still there. Said after a while, they left the room. They pushed that baby carriage right back up the stairs. The door opened on the closet. They went in, the door closed.
Wow. And
She said,
even though it was nailed shut, it opened still.
Yeah. She said they saw it. She saw it several nights. She was terrified. She had to tell her father, she said. And as she went to tell her father, her brother started telling it. And her sister started telling it. Another sister started telling it. And he tells them, whoa, tell me, and they told my grandfather everything. He said, well, why didn't you yell at me? One of them said, I tried to yell. Nothing would come out. He said, well, if they come tonight, pick up a pillow and throw it at us to wake us up. So he said, okay, I'll do that. Well, that night they came again, and my uncle tried to pick up a pillow and throw it at his parents. And he said it was like the pillow weighed a ton, like it was glued to the mattress or something. He could not lift it.
Wow.
There was nothing he could do. And this time, of course, they all know they're all awake and they're all seeing it. And they're looking at one another as these ghosts are in there. And they couldn't believe what they were seeing. That was that occasion. Another occasion, my mother's absolute oldest sibling went to the back porch where they kept the chamber pot. I don't know how many country people are watching, but used to, you either went to the outhouse, didn't matter how much snow you had to walk through to get to the outhouse, or you went to the chamber pot. So she went to the chamber pot, was sitting on the chamber pot, and she said a white-haired old lady walked up to her and smacked her. And she ran to my grandmother and told her, crying, about this woman smacking her. And she said the red handprints were still on her face, that her mother could see it.
Amazing.
On another occasion, they had collected black walnuts from underneath a wild walnut tree nearby, and they had put them in the attic to dry for the holes to fall off of them,
Mm-hmm.
And so they could crack the nuts and eat them. Well, she told my mother to take a basket and go up there and pick up as many as she could. My mother went up there and she picked up one, and she heard a baby crying beneath her. She had a little sister at that time, was only a few months old. And she runs downstairs and she tells her mother, said, Mama, Ruby's crying. Why don't you pick her up? Said Ruby hadn't cried a bit. But I heard a baby crying beneath me. She said, I heard one crying above me. Now go back up there and pick up those walnuts. My grandmother was not fazed at all. She feared nothing. She was a courageous woman, brave and strong. I come from a lot of females, a lot of women. I have great respect for women because they were the strongest people in my family, not the men.
Yeah.
And my grandma sent her back up there. But my mom said when she started picking up walnuts, that baby started crying. She threw that basket down. She run down the stairs. Mama, I'm not picking up them walnuts. And she said, why is there a baby crying when I pick up those walnuts? And my grandmother said, somebody must have buried a baby under the walnut tree. She's like stating it, like it's old news. It's matter of fact, she had that kind of way of reacting to abnormal things like that. And my grandmother said, I'll go up and pick up a walnut. So she went up to the attic and she's picking them up. And my mother said that baby was screaming and crying, said she couldn't stand it. And she put her hands on her ears so she couldn't hear it. And she couldn't believe just how long her mother took picking up those walnuts. And she come back down, she had a basket full of walnuts. And she said that was terrifying. She also said that whenever they went to church and they came back from church, all the doors on the house, the front door and the back door, the enclosed porch door, would all be open, and windows would be open. Things would be askew in the house. They couldn't believe what was going on. Every time they went to church, they didn't know what was going on. Every time it rained, and it used to rain a lot more in Kentucky back then. Every time it rained, there was blood on the porch. You never saw it until it rained. And they asked some neighbors, why is that happening? One of the neighbors said a woman lived there who was constantly having babies out of wedlock. And they believe she beat their brains out on that porch and then buried them until she went insane and killed herself.
Tragic story.
Anyway, they said that one time they went to church and my uncle and two of his cousins decided to stay and listen to the radio and listen to the Grand Ole Opry. Probably young people have no idea what that is or why they would listen to a radio, but that was before television. Or before they could afford television anyway. And they were listening to the Grand Ole Opry while they were at church. When they came back from church, all the doors were open. Things were askew in the house. And they went in, but they couldn't find none of those three men. Those three men were 18 years old and above. Where were they? They looked all over for them. And finally, they found them hiding under my grandparents' bed. Three grown men had all crawled under that bed together. Wow. And they said, why are you under there? And they said, that closet door flew open. Those two people pushed that baby carriage down the stairs and came into this room, and we all three dived under the bed. And we stayed here till you got home. We weren't coming out. They were terrified.
Yeah.
One of the things the neighbors had told them is everybody that had ever bought the farm and lived there, the head of the house, the father, usually became ill and either died in the house or died later after leaving. One lady came to have dinner with her relatives there, my grandmother and my aunts and uncles and grandfather. And she could see from where she was sitting at the kitchen table, she could see into the bedroom. And she asked my grandmother, said, Gracie, who's that woman sitting in the rocking chair and rocking the cradle that your baby is in? And my grandmother looked in there. She couldn't see nobody, but this woman could see this woman. And she said, I don't know. I guess it's the woman who used to live here. It must have died here. And the woman said, what? You're telling me that's a ghost? And they say the rocking chair would all of a sudden start rocking on its own. At the time, my grandfather was an alcoholic, and when he would come in drunk, the rocking chair would rock on its own. And he said, one of these days I'm going to take an axe to that rocking chair, which he didn't do it, but he swore to do it. But he came down with leukemia. They had to sell the farm and moved into a shotgun house in town because they couldn't sell that farm for much. But the coal mine paid them more than they thought they would get.
Yeah. So the coal mine eventually ended up owning the property.
Yeah, the coal mines eventually owned the property. They told my great grand uncle, my grandmother's uncle, that he could tear the house down. He tore it down. He built a house near to my paternal grandparents' home on 6 acres he owned, and he built a storage building. When we bought our house in 66 or 67, that was the house we bought. That was the house in 6 acres we bought. And some really strange things took place in that house. But I didn't see anything. I've got to tell you that. I didn't see nothing, but things would be moved. We'd hear noises, but we didn't see anything. And some real strange things would happen with our stoves. We had a coal stove one time that it blew up, and everywhere was covered with black coal dust, and our faces were black. Our hands that were out of, whatever was out from under the covers when we were sleeping that night was black, and there was black cobwebs everywhere. We had to clean the house and clean ourselves thoroughly. In 68, December 5th, 68, that house, after my father had built 2 rooms onto the house that were bigger than that house, and we were fixing to move into it, he had more lumber that he had taken from an old roller skating rink that had been blown down by a storm in town, and he was fixing to add on to the house on the other side. But that house burned down December 5th, 1968. Only the rooms my uncle had built, my great-granduncle had built, had burned. The 2 rooms that he built weren't even touched, not even smoke damage.
Wow.
But the house burned to the ground. And everything we owned, except the clothes on our back and the 2 automobiles we had, we lost everything. That was my 10th birthday and my father's 38th birthday. I was born on his birthday in 1958. And we had to move into somebody wanted to give us a house to live in. My father said, I lost everything, but I'm not without a job. I'm going to pay you for renting this house to me. So eventually we built a home up to the other side with Jim Walters Homes. They built the exterior. My father did the interior. My father was an electrician. He did all the electrical work. He had a licensed electrician do the electrical work, but the electrical inspector wouldn't approve it. So my father top secretly redid all the electric because he had been a licensed electrician in Indiana. And when the man came back, said, this is some of the best electrical work I've ever seen. You have to tell me who did it. Well, my father had tried to get in the electrical union, but they told him he'd have to start over as an apprentice. So he didn't do it. Anyway, one night, my father and mother had bought land at Lake Barkley, near the land between the lakes. And we would take a cabin tent to that land and set it up and sleep in the cabin tent during the summer, and we'd fish in Lake Barkley and swim. But one night he set it up. He always set it up before we went down there to air it out. And I and my brother and my cousins, we asked him if we could stay in it one night while he was airing it out. And he said, sure, you won't hurt nothing. So we asked my mother to tell us about her haunted house experience. Again, we'd heard it, me and my cousins had heard it hundreds of times, but she told it all again, all what I've done told you. And so we go out the door, and we're coming around the corner of this new house, and we look down at the storage building that had been built from the wood that came from that haunted house. My father had put electricity in that barn, had put a light in there, and the door was open and the light was on. And we knew personally that my father had shut the door, all the electric was out. We run back to the house, told my mother, she just jumped us and said, "You're going down there, you're going to sleep in that tent, and don't you dare come up here before morning." Now, I'm going to tell you, we were more afraid of my mother than we was afraid of anything else. So we went down there, and as we round the corner, the door is shut, the light is out. Something already weird's going on. And we went in the tent, and we all lay down, went to sleep. At midnight, I'm awakened by the loudest sound of a woman screaming, chains being rattled. It sounds like furniture is being moved in that building, things that my dad had in there stored. We
Good night,
had
Brother
noticed.
Charlie. Good to see you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, William.
We had noticed that things in that building had been moved before, but it hadn't been very bad. But now they were moving, and as I look, there are the shadows of 3 people on the tent, because we had a lamp between us on a high lamp post between us and that storage building. So they had to be closer than that. I had 2 dogs, a border collie and a German Shepherd cross, and they were charging at those shadows, and they were being picked up, and it sounded like their muzzle was being closed, and they were being thrown at the top of the tent. The zipper on the tent was going up and down. I thought I was the only one hearing it. I turned to my cousin who was down from Hammond, Indiana, that didn't believe in ghosts, and I said, "Do you hear those ghosts?" He said, "I don't hear nothing. Ain't no such thing as ghosts. You go to sleep." And I forget him. I turn around to my other cousin who's next to me. He said, "I've been hearing them since midnight." And another cousin beside him also woke up and said, "I've been hearing them since midnight too. I've been keeping my head covered because I'm terrified." And we can still see the shadows and hear them yelling and screaming and hollering. Now, the woman screaming, it's what it sounded like. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who lived nearby to us, she heard it, and my sister and a cousin from up in Hammond, a girl cousin, was staying with her grandmother, and my grandmother called the police. We had one town sheriff. We were only had 300 people. We couldn't afford any more than one sheriff, you know.
Yeah.
He came and he heard the woman screaming, and he looked around and couldn't find anything. He said, "Maybe it's a bird or a cat or something." And they said, "But it sounds just like a woman." He said, "I know, but I can't find anything. I can't find anybody." They said, "It sounds like it's coming from up there." Well, he said, "I knocked on your daughter's door, or your son's door." It was my father's mother. "I knocked on your son's door," and he said, your daughter-in-law said, "There's nothing here. I'm not screaming. I'm not hurt, you know. Nothing's going on here." But when she opened the door, she heard the screaming too. She didn't think nothing of it. She's like my grandmother. She was fearless.
Yeah.
But so that they actually corroborated our story. My city cousin, he finally admitted he was awake the whole time and had heard everything. And though he didn't believe in ghosts, he did after that.
No,
He used to say my grandmother's and great-grandfather's stories were lies. He said, "They're just telling you entertaining stories," but they always said, "We're not telling you a story to entertain you. We're teaching you, so you know how to react, that this is normal. Ghosts are real. Monsters are real. Demons are real. But angels and God are real too," they said.
Yes.
And so we thought about getting up and going up to the house, but my mother's threat was ever living in our minds. And we feared my mother more than we feared any ghosts. I tell you that. In those days, parents used a belt or a switch.
Yeah. These days they use pills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back back then they knew how to solve hyperactivity.
Yeah,
We'll work it out
know.
of you. We'll work it out of you, or we'll beat it out of you. You know,
Right. And the belt
That's
wasn't
the way
near as
they-
bad as the switch. You know,
yeah.
I'd take that belt any day over that switch. My mom would tell my older sister to go out there when somebody mess up, and one of me or my brothers, and she'd tell my older sister, go out there and cut me a switch off that tree.
Yeah.
You know,
I was mad at my brother and sister one time. My mother told me to go cut a switch, and I cut a big old thick switch and brought it back. She said, next time you bring a club, I'm going to beat you with it. But I really wanted to get them because they was really causing me trouble, you know.
Yeah.
I almost cheered my mother on, you know. Hit him another one for me, Mom. Hit him another one.
Yeah, things were a lot different back in those days than they are today.
Yeah.
That's for sure. William, you're
And,
just a fountain of interesting stories in history. Let me ask you this, brother. Have you ever seen a UFO in your life?
Yeah, that ghost experience I had was in 71, July 71. In 73, we had moved to near Hallsville, Kentucky. My father worked at a smelting plant there called National Southwire Aluminum. I don't know what it's called now. It was in partnership with National Steel and Southwire Corporation that built that smelter, and my father worked there. There was the Big Rivers power plant there that supplied all three aluminum plants with electric. A helicopter flew the power lines from that Big Rivers plant out through the area where they had cut power line areas for it, through the forest. And this, for some, they used to spray herbicide to keep down the plants. Well, this one night, we couldn't believe it. At night, this helicopter pilot was flying over the lines, and we're watching it, my mother and I, and all of a sudden we see this huge yellow egg-shaped object in the sky above the helicopter, and then moved in front of it. And my mother said, that ain't no plane. I said, no, it's not a plane. And it wasn't moving that fast. I'd say it was, under 100 miles an hour, I'd say. The helicopter pilot seemed to see it too. He turned it in a nose up attitude and went towards it. But he went real high, but it just went off and left him.
Did it make a sound or anything?
No sound. The only sound we heard was the helicopter. That's all we heard.
Wow. Is that the only time you've ever seen anything strange in the sky, William?
I've seen some awfully big birds that I didn't think were normal size in the air, but I had no frame of reference really to judge them against. They looked larger than your average vulture or turkey buzzard. They looked a whole lot larger. But like I said, I had no frame of reference. They were so high up. No tree nearby or another bird nearby, but to me, they look like a Piper Cub. That was what the wingspan looked like. Yeah. But I can't attest to that. I can only say that I thought that at the time.
Right.
At that time too, when we lived in Centertown, it was about the same time. The farmer across the railroad tracks had called my father and asked him for help. He said a black panther had attacked his horse, and would my dad come help? And the next day I went up there. My father went up there with his rifle, and the next day I went up there. He was treating his horse, and the horse had what looked like claw prints on its right shoulder. I didn't see the cat that time. But I've heard about black cats all my life in Kentucky.
Sure, they're here for sure. I've seen them 3 times in my life, twice in broad daylight. So they're definitely here. Now, Brother William, we could talk all night, I know, and still not get to the bottom of your wellspring of knowledge and experiences. So I'm going to ask the viewers if you have any questions for William. please write them down, and we'll get him to answer them. Please write them in all caps, okay, so we can see.
Chris has already got some started for him.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I sure do. Well, let me scroll down here.
Sure.
This was when we were talking about you there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm there.
Right here.
You guys there?
I see it. Does he think they're related to the
love cat.
Nephilim?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have to say this. I know some Hebrew, Chaldean, and Greek being a minister. Nephilim means the lower ones, the lower down ones. The Alexandrian influenced Jews, they changed it into Giate in Greek, which means giant. The Nephilim does not necessarily mean giant. Okay. I have no factual evidence, theory, or anything. I just know what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I just know what I experienced. I cannot comment as to what the Nephilim, I've always thought, and some Jews have thought, refer to a lower class of human being, and they believe that that's what they called Neanderthals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what some Jews believe, the Nephilim.
Mhm.
And of course, Neanderthals were more like us.
Yeah.
So I can't answer your question. I'm not going to postulate theories.
Well, thanks for your honesty, brother.
Yep, absolutely.
Next question.
Is from me. I actually sounds like you're out in the woods a lot, William. Have you ever come across a dog man or anything of that nature?
I've never seen a dog man or a gugway. I haven't seen a Tennessee wild man or a Connecticut wild man. I know, or a goat man. I know people. I used to live in Hancock County, and right there in Breckenridge County, next to Hancock County, is where the goat man has been seen many times. I've never seen one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I never call nobody a liar unless I have the proof.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was all the questions
All right.
that we had started.
Okay.
Well, that's great.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Now's your chance.
Now's your chance.
William, is there anything we're just about ready to wrap up, brother? Is there anything else that you would like to say to the viewers?
Well, I think I've told everything. I might have forgotten some things. I'm 65 years old. I think I'm due some forgetting,
Sure. Right. Well, someone asked earlier if this was if he was on a podcast somewhere, and yes, I did do an interview with William last year at his house, and it is up on a podcast. Some of his stories, of course. We went over basically the Inhumanoid aspects. We didn't go over too much of your other experiences or your grandparents and your great grandparents' experiences, but there is a podcast there with William. He is the subject of it, so you guys check that out.
Yeah, when I said that my grandmother thought that I had been marked by Bigfoot because I'd seen him a second time. I wonder what she would think now after I've seen him about 6 or 8 times.
Right. A lot of people find it incredible that, or even unbelievable that someone can see these things so many times, but
I would have preferred never to have seen nothing.
People out there that haven't.
Now, all my family.
I've seen Bigfoot twice now myself and encountered it 2 more times that I didn't see it. So
all my family believed in him, and my father believed he lived at Rosine, Kentucky, and he had been called to a farm near Jerusalem Ridge, where Bill Monroe is from, and his father had been called to it, not him. But a Bigfoot
music right there.
Bigfoot had tried to bust into a barn there, so.
Oh,
wow.
So he believed in it. He believed that man, what he told.
Yeah.
Wow.
Real quick, thank you to Ristel.
Yes, thank you, Ristel.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jitesh, and everyone who donated. Thank you for your generosity. Victor, your
If you,
generosity was unbelievable tonight. Thank you so much.
I was going to say, if you click on top under the star, they're all listed.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to
Baby,
do
once
that
you
right now.
thank each one individually because
Yeah.
we really appreciate y'all. Like I say, we're new to this, and we're just so honored that you guys think enough of us to help support us. And if you want to, we have membership tiers available, different levels, and we're going to be working some more on that this weekend with membership content as well as dropping some new videos.
I want to say this is one of my favorite books, Bigfoot in Kentucky.
Oh, well, thank
Barton
you.
Nunley.
Brother William. Yes.
Thank you.
That's very nice. You know, some people use my books to go out and have their own experiences. Believe it or not. And
It's even autographed. It's even got an autograph in it.
Yeah.
So let me thank you, Sam Barton, for becoming a new member. JD, I'm sorry for the $2.99. Super sticker. Sugar Britches for the $20. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Sherry Griffey, Hawk, Sugar Britches for becoming a member. Holly M, Liberty 1776. Hawk for gifting memberships. Shade Viking,
Brother Shade. How you doing,
Bigfoot
John?
Society, Jitesh. Wow.
Victor.
I don't know what to say. Just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody.
Answer the question. I've only discussed these things with one minister that I know of. My brother is a doctor, has a doctorate in ministry and is a military chaplain. But my present pastor is my cousin. I confided some of these things in. But some of the pastors in my faith, they call it superstition.
Thank you, Brother Larry. Right. So the churches these days, William, you know, they don't really preach the Bible. They preach the comforting version of the Bible, and it's what people want to hear. It's not necessarily what they need to hear, but what they want to hear. And most of them seem to be strictly wanting the donations. You know, that's the aspect of the ministry that they're most concerned with, and it's really a shame. We need people to. Thank you, James. We need people to know the Word of God, and because all the answers are right there, it all comes down to the battle between good and evil, and it's the most unpopular answer that I could ever give anyone that's looking into these things is that it's all biblical.
Can I say some good things?
Sure.
My first, I would say, paranormal experience, absolutely, I hadn't mentioned. I was in a hospital, Catholic hospital in Indiana. I was about 4 years old, maybe a little younger. I was about 4 years old. They had me tied down with IVs in me and in an oxygen tent. And all of a sudden, a nurse I'd never seen before, I'm having a raging fever, raises the oxygen tent. She has one of those nurses' caps that has a blue line around it, and there's an angel on her nursing's cap. She has snowy white hair. Her skin is snowy white, not white like a normal peach-colored white person. Mm-hmm. It's snowy white. And her uniform, of course, is white. And she reaches in and puts her hand on my head. And she said, "Don't worry, baby. You'll be home for Christmas."
Aww.
Wow.
My fever went away just like that. She pulled her hand off of me, pulled the curtain back down. And almost immediately after she did that, the other nurse with a little round pillbox hat on raised the curtain, and she put the thermometer in my mouth. That wasn't always where they put them, but she put it in my mouth. She felt in my head. She said, he doesn't have a fever now. It's broke. And she said, maybe we can call his mother to come get him, or come see him. She's out there, they said. That's all they put it the way. I didn't know that parents were not allowed to visit unless a child was about to die or something. They were made to stay in a room and see you through a two-way mirror. And my mother came in there and said, she said, he's feeling better. That's what she told my mother. And I described to her the beautiful nurse that put her hand on my head and took my fever away. And they hear me describing this nurse, just as I described it to you. And the nun and the nurse say, there's nobody like that works here. And the nurse, says that honestly, but the nun has an odd look on her face. And then she says this, and I'll never forget it. A lot of people have seen that nurse all over this hospital, and they always miraculously are healed and go home.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So
Amazing.
my first experience with an angel. Another time we're traveling to Michigan. The car is broke down. We don't think we're going to make it. My mother turns to me and my brother. Both of us have become ministers later on. And she said, I want you boys to pray that God send us help. Because I know when you pray, things happen.
Yeah.
So we prayed. We all of a sudden found a service station open. It was near midnight. We went in. These two mechanics had stayed late to work on somebody's car. We were driving a Volkswagen squareback sedan. They were kind of rare in this age. It was 1971. And nobody knew what they were. They went to look at the engine. They lifted the hood, and the hood was a luggage compartment. It was not where the engine was at. And the mechanic said, no wonder they're having trouble. There ain't no engine. And my father is taking luggage out of the back so he can lift the hatch on the air-cooled engine. They know nothing about an air-cooled engine. My mother takes us into the gas station's office and buys us, me and my brother, 2 candy bars. My sister is asleep. And we're on top of a hill and we're looking down. There's a sidewalk on each side and there's lights on both sides. And like I said, it's past midnight and there's a little bit of mist moving around. And me and my brother are looking out the picture window. And all of a sudden, this big, tall man appears. I don't mean he walked up. I mean, he appeared in our vision. He had long hair, brown hair, a beard, wearing blue denim jacket, a blue denim shirt, blue jeans, and he had a blue denim satchel on his shoulder. And he walks, and the minute he appears, he's looking at our car. He isn't looking at us or anything at anything else. He's looking at that car. He walks up, and my father, like I said, in shoes, is 6 foot tall. This man must have been 4 or 5 inches taller than him. And he said, have you figured out what's wrong? He said, no. He said, let me take a look. He doesn't use any tools. He's putting his hands on the engine. And he said, you've got it. He explains the problem to him. And he said, do you have this part? They said, no, we don't have a part for Volkswagens. He said, I have what you need. And he went over to his satchel, which is laying there, pulls out a part, and he puts it in the car. And he said, now start it up. And the car runs perfectly. And before anybody can say anything to him, he turns in the opposite direction. He walks right down the sidewalk, down the hill, the exact same way he went. Me and my brother are watching him. He goes down the hill, and he vanished. Me and my brother both seen it. We're preaching the gospel today. And that's what we saw.
Wow.
I've told you a lot of bad stuff. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, that is very, very good. And I'm
Yes,
sure there's
it's
more
real
of it in there, brother, if you think about it a little harder, but we have to close it up now. A lot of people have to work tomorrow, so we got a few more people to thank.
Goodbye and happy Thanksgiving.
So tomorrow is Thanksgiving. Tonight was truths giving. So I want to thank you for coming here and sharing your truths with everybody, my friend.
I still need to thank Appalachian Tales of Terror with Jimmy B.
Jimmy Blanton. Thank you.
Don't
Thank you,
ever
buddy.
worry about how much you can give or how little you can give. You don't have to give anything at all. Just your support by being here
Yes.
is plenty for us.
Doesn't cost anything to share this out.
There does not.
Right.
Thank you, Sam Burton. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Two Shadows, Ristall, Barry, Sue G. I think I got your name right this time.
Yes, you did.
And Brother Larry Fisher. Thank you guys so much. We
Thank you all.
appreciate everybody and everybody being here.
Right. Donations aren't expected, but they are appreciated because, you know, it costs money to do this and go out and bring you good content. And all the money that we get donated to us goes to support this channel. We will be buying some new equipment. You guys are really going to love what's coming up. And I want to say happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. We love you guys. We'll see you next Wednesday. We'll have another amazing guest then. And try to stay safe, be kind to one another, and help somebody if you can, okay? Doesn't cost anything to help someone. It
Right.
costs nothing to be kind to someone. So treat everyone with a little bit of kindness and help each other if you can. And thank you, Brother William. Again, we sure appreciate it. Everybody loves your stories, and we'll have to have you on here again sometime to finish up what you didn't get to tell.
Yeah.
Well, I like being here. Just everybody, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you eat as much as you want, not more than you need.
Right? Yeah. Don't eat too much, guys.
My
We love
wife's
y'all.
got a big meal planned tomorrow. Just me and her. Our kids and grandkids are not coming in, so it's just going to be us old people together.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a very good Thanksgiving to spend with your wife. Mine has to work, unfortunately, but you know, that's I guess that's a break
Gotta
sometimes.
pay the bills.
Yeah, got to pay the bills. And so we thank
Mhm.
everybody. We love all you guys. Thank you all for being in the chat. Thanks to everyone who sends me their emails and trusts me with their stories. I will be working on those again very soon. And if you send me a story, please include your phone number because I will be calling you to make sure your story is true and you're not pulling some kind of joke. And I don't want to ever put not even a single word on this channel that I don't think is true. So no AI generated content or fakery or anything like that will you ever see on this channel. Only people like my good friend William Baize, who's here to tell you the truth. So thanks again, brother. Thanks again, all of you guys. We love y'all. God bless. Happy Thanksgiving,
Good night.
everyone. Good night.
Krista, do I put everybody backstage and then in stream first?
Yeah, we're still learning how to do this.
Okay, so in stream.
Okay, good night, everyone. We
Good
love you.
night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Happy Thanksgiving.